Okay, today is the last day of thinking errors. Yes. Again, these thinking errors are problematic for sex offenders, obviously, but the truth is that we all have thinking errors, as I've said, and they keep us from having the best life that we can. All right, so let's get started. The first one that we're going to talk about today is failure to make an effort or endure adversity. I know, it's a long name. Okay, so to this person, effort of any kind means doing something they don't want to do instead of doing the things that they want to do. They put no effort into anything unless they deem it worthy. Instead of properly dealing with the adversities of life that we all face, they resort to criminal thoughts and actions. They literally refuse to accept adversity. All right? So the corrective for this, accept that there must be consequences when you fail to make an effort. Think about efforts you've made in the past for the things that you want that weren't necessarily good for you, and redirect that energy towards the things that you know you should do. Understand that everyone has adversity at some point in their lives. Find solutions for this adversity instead of avoiding it or abandoning your efforts. All right, the next one, number 32. Poor decision making for responsible living. Now, this is someone who doesn't use reasoning or fact finding in their efforts. They don't consider the cost of something, the risk of something, the options that might be available. This is a very impulsive person. All right, if their ideas or decisions are contradicted with any kind of fact, they don't want to hear them. All right, so what's the corrective for this? Be cautious and careful in your decision making. You need to consider consequences before you act. If you see a theme here with these thinking errors, that's one of them, considering consequences. Taking 2 minutes to think before you act. Be flexible. Don't be hesitant to ask questions, get feedback, weigh the risks before you do something. Consider options before you go directly into decision making. All right, number 33, corrosion and cutoff. This is someone who commits a crime in spite of the fact that they do have sentiment, that they do have some kind of a conscience, that they do have religious feelings or even a desire to change. But someone who has corrosion and cutoff is able to put all of those feelings aside. They are able to drown out their conscience quickly and completely because their desire to commit a crime outweighs all of those good thoughts and desires that they do have. They're able to block out the memory of how bad they felt in the past when they've committed a crime or done other bad things. All right, so the corrective for this, this is another one we've heard before, is to experience some self-disgust when you're doing things that aren't good. And use that self-disgust to remind yourself of the consequence of criminal acts. Use some guilt. Use some fear to guide your behavior. That's another reoccurring theme. Fear is there for a reason. Look at the crimes and the bad deeds that you've committed in the past and take a look at what the consequences were for those. Stop fantasizing or dwelling on the excitement of committing a criminal act. All right, number 34, building up the opinion of oneself as a good person. Now, this is someone who convinces themselves that they are a good and decent person, although they've clearly committed crimes. This person minimizes the harm that they've done to others. They also believe that the good deeds that they've done somehow magically cancel out the bad things that they've done. All right, so the corrective for this is to really recognize and accept the fact that good deeds don't cancel out bad deeds. Good deeds count, bad deeds count, but they don't cancel each other out. And good deeds are not a defense for bad acts or crimes. Everything counts Even if you consider that very inconvenient, it's true. Check out how genuine your good deeds are in the first place. Okay. Number 35, deferment. Okay, this is you, then you are always saying you'll get to it later. Today, you can't do it. People who have this thinking error think that one day in the future it will be easier to change, but today just doesn't happen to be that day. All right, so the corrective for this. Start to look at some consequences that you're going to face if you don't change. I worked in a prison full of people who thought they'd change later and who didn't want to face consequences. So think about your consequences now, before you hurt someone or before you have 10 to 20 years to consider what you could have done to change. Eliminate excuses and that I can't attitude. All right? Drum roll, please. We have the last thinking error. Number 36, super optimism. This is a person, if they have this thinking error, they believe that once he or she considers doing something, it's as good as done. All right? They approach everything that way, including criminal acts, because they are certain they won't get caught. The fact that they think about doing it means it's going to be a success, without question. They don't examine any kind of reasonable doubts. This person uses super optimism to convince themselves that they don't even have to make a big effort for things for them to turn out well. Somehow they will just magically happen. So the corrective for this, to eliminate super optimism, you need to do some fact finding before you do things. Look for input and feedback from people if you really want things to turn out the way that you imagine they will. Okay. I cannot believe that we finished all 36 thinking errors. Go back and look at the other videos and review them because it's a lot of information. It's a lot to digest. I'm going to put an assignment on our Facebook page that covers these last 18 thinking errors that we covered. I want you to think about what thinking errors you have and how they've affected your life. Do any of these thinking errors have something in common with each other? Because there is some overlap with them. All right, so what are we going to do next time? We are going to start to discuss the tactics that people use that obstruct change in their lives. We definitely get in our own way all the time. There are quite a few tactics that people use, so we are going to cover them over a few days' time. Until next time, you know I'm going to ask you to subscribe. Please do subscribe to this channel. Hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm available. Ask me questions, make comments, give me feedback. I'll take it all. And until I see you next time, be well.